Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Salam. How's everyone doing? Welcome to Udgon 7. I'm your host, Ifrah Udgon. Today, I have Shirin with us. Shirin Ramzanali Fazel. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Shirin wrote this wonderful book, Far from Mogadishu, that I read actually before last year, before I went to Mogadishu. And this book just filled me with just so much wonder and a homesickness, that I didn't have before. There's just so much that when you grow up in the diaspora, that you think about Somalia, that you think about Mogadishu, because of like the Western images and the media that you consume. And Shireen just gave me an entirely different image and just kind of instilled in me that desire to want to see Somalia again, to see that Mogadishu of Shireen's youth. I did not experience Shirin's Mogadishu, but I'm really happy that Shirin is here with us today to talk to us about Far from Mogadishu, the book, about herself, her life story. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Ifrah, thank you for having me in this beautiful weekly show that you have program. I'm really proud and, honored to be your guest. I always wanted to meet young Somalis who are, studied and live abroad. And it is really fantastic to spend this 1 hour with you. And I welcome all your listeners from wherever in the world they are, because this is the diaspora, really. We are scattered all over the world. And so I'm a writer, and I was born and brought up in Mogadishu. I was born in Isbital Martini, like many children, many babies in Mogadishu. Maybe you will ask yourself, but why she's pointing, highlighting Isbital Martini? Because when I left Mogadishu and moved to Italy in 1971, I was asked weird questions like, did you live in a hut? Were you born under a tree? Did you have roads and cars? Where you come from? Did you wear a grass skirt? Are there cannibals in Africa? At that time, children in Italy had the figure of the Negro, a word that is still used in Italy, with a grass skirt on their school books. He would have a big ring hanging from his nose and a bone between his coarse hair. On some magazines, the caricature of a white man boiling in a big pot and Africans dancing around him. In shops, I would see a thin box with the face of an African child stamped, left there by the church to collect money. When in 1991 the civil war erupted and the media in Italy were showing only war, killing, looting, civilians fleeing, famine, chaos, all the books written at that time by journalists were only about war, not a single positive image of our beautiful country. The media has created the stereotype of a war-torn country, terrorism, land of pirates, Mogadishu, the most dangerous city in the world. It was as if Italy had forgotten its colonial past. I realized that the Italian government has an institutional will to cancel everything about the atrocities of fascism and colonial era. I was angry, frustrated. I wanted to show the beauty of our city, our culture, Nakhankaina, our people, our tradition. This is the reason why I wrote this book. The first edition, Lontano da Mogadishu, was published in 1994 in Italian language because Somalia was an ex-colony of Italy and we were taught Italian in school. Far from Mogadishu started a process of revision of the colonial past because Somalia in largely was unknown reality in contemporary Italy. The book describes the neighborhoods of Mogadishu, our multicultural city, the Somali culture of hospitality, poetry. I also narrate my experience of migration and racism. Written without the help of an Italian co-author, I was describing Italians from my point of view. This was very new to them. The book was very well received in the academic world. Presenting in schools and universities, I had the opportunity to decolonize the Italian imaginary and to come terms with their own history. Because the lack of collective memory has created lack of empathy toward migrants. In 2010, I went to live in England and I realized that most of the young Somalis who were born and bred in UK knew little about the Somalia I grew up. They were fed the same negative narrative which sadly the Western media is spreading. In 2013, I translated in English and rewrote part from Mogadishu, including new chapters on the Somali diaspora, an opportunity to share our past history, memories, and hope.
It fills me with so much emotion, just like you just hearing you talk about it. And the same deal, rereading the book. I read it the first time, and like I said, I was just in awe of that Mogadishu that you were talking about, because personally, I had never known that. Even though I was born there, I didn't live there. And I didn't stay in Somalia for long either. I spent more time outside of Somalia, but I was very well accustomed to the images in the media of Somalia, right? And as a young person, you grow up outside of your homeland. You're not there to experience those things. You tend to just absorb those images, and they become your reality. So you went on a journey of decolonizing basically all of our minds, even those of us who are of Somali origin but have accepted, the narrative.
Yeah. I think because the story in the media is repeated almost every day, it gets into us. And you need a new story. And that's why we have to tell our own story, all of us, every time when we have the chance. And that's the only way we can decolonize our mentality, our way of seeing things. I think sometimes New York is more dangerous than Mogadishu, really, or Paris, or anywhere, or Rome. But there is this kind of mentality that, no, Mogadishu is the most dangerous city in the world, and people are so scared. Oh my God, something is going to happen to you if you go there. Don't go there. Chicago is much more dangerous than Mogadishu, really. And you live in the States, you know all the problems, what's going on. So it's how we are fed that creates all these stereotypes of. So we need to tell the stories, our own stories, because even now in Somalia and Mogadishu, so many nice things are happening, positive things, but they are not told. They are not, they're hidden in a way.
They're not highlighted as much as the bad things.
Yeah. قرح markuu dhaco meel kasta laga sheegaa. Even the medias, Western medias, but when something good happens, nobody talks about it. It's like.
And then just in your mind, you have like more bad than good. And that bad just overtakes like that perception of, what Mogadishu entails. I read your book, and then I went to Somalia actually last summer, and it was really exciting for me to go there. I had not been in Somalia for 26 years, and I don't mind revealing my age, good people. It is what it is. I love getting older. With age has become wisdom and experience, alhamdulillah, truly. But after 26 years, I had not been, in Somalia. So I was so excited to be in Somalia. It was heartbreaking at the same time because I did not see the Mogadishu that you talked about. There were still like badly broken buildings. There was still, there wasn't that magic that you talked about, and you can imagine a country after like about nearly 30 years of instability and a civil war. So that filled me with sadness as well. How do we balance the two then? How do we balance like that memory also with the reality on the ground?
It's very difficult to balance it, but I think we can change things slowly in Somalia, because now everything is so still raw. And people still did not, talk openly about healing and about reconciliation. I think this is the big problem. And once you start talking about reconciliation, about healing, things can change. What scares me and, what preoccupies me about Somalia now is the fact that it doesn't accept so much multiculturalism like it was before. And tribalism has become a very, very strong element, even in elections and in many other things, while the young people who are abroad are not thinking that way. But still in Mogadishu, in Somalia, there is this mentality that is, portrayed by older people.
Mm.
So we have to learn from the young generation, really, to change the country. This is what I think.
I apologize. That was me. Did y'all hear that? I'm sorry. My phone and my computer are connected. So the younger people, I'm so sorry. Let me completely shut this phone down here on this side. It's connected to my computer. I apologize. So the younger people that are growing up in that environment are still experiencing, I guess, that smog of racism. They're breathing that in. What kind of change do you envision, the kind of like a grassroots movement that would really get to the hearts of people? What do you think people in the diaspora can really do to work together with, people that are locally in Somalia for that healing or for that reconciliation?
But I think it's already happening. A lot of young people from the diaspora are back in Somalia. They're working shoulder to shoulder with their peers. Things are changing in Somalia, and I'm sure you have seen some kind of change. Only that they are not strong enough because there is no much money that supports their businesses and what their dreams and what they want to do. So in a way, it's so difficult to emerge and to be independent.
Mm-hmm. I did see some changes. I was very excited to see there was a construction of the National Theater. I don't know if it's been finished. I saw some videos on Twitter as well of like reconstruction of the National Theater. And I think it's very promising, that revival of the arts and culture, because arts and culture really, like when people's creativities can flourish is when, we can, I believe, move, towards progress. Art and culture is a big part of progress.
The National Theatre is completed, and Somalis have always been poets, and they always loved art and culture. So even with the dictatorship, I remember that what saved us in a way was the poets or the screenplay writers, those people who really, and even during the diaspora, they created something that brought us together. And the positivity is Somalis never, look down to themselves or never, they are always positive in a way. And even in the sadness, they try to find something that makes them laugh.
Yeah.
So this is, what keeps us. And I'm really glad that, now the artists are, although some people don't agree that Muslims have to sing or listen to music and all that, we cannot change our culture. It's very difficult for Somalis not to accept music or theater or riwayat and all this. It's part of our being.
It is, and for me personally, it's my favorite part. When I was growing up in the diaspora where I am, one of the things that connected me to being Somali are the old Somali songs and the old Somali riwayats. Those are the people that I saw myself in. Those are the people that made me want to be Somali. Not so much really the kind of very strict cultural definition or very narrow parameters of what it means to be Somali that I ended up growing up with in the diaspora, but it was the old Somali in the 70s and 80s that made me really connect with my roots. So art is definitely a huge part of my connection to being Somali.
Really, in the 60s when we were growing up, hijab was not, the way of wearing, showing yourself that you are a Muslim. Women used to wear their garbasar. You could see their neck. They were beautiful. It was another Somalia. And also for us young girls, it was not compulsory to cover our hair. So it was so normal. We were Somalis, we were practical Somalis, and the religion was something that it was lived, really. You could see it. people had that sense of community, of neighborhood, of loving each other, of helping each other. So Islam was bred in our culture, in our day-to-day life. It was not to show off that we are Muslim, but we were acting as Muslims in our everyday life. This is the difference. While now, in a way, you have to show that you are Muslim from outside already. What is inside is not so important. It's what you show outside. And in a way, it's a bit a pity because this is not what we were brought up with. This is not our mentality.
Do you think it's a result of maybe like a broken government and moving to other countries where you really had to try very hard to hold on to your sense of identity?
I think yes, because when people move to a new country, they want to preserve, their heritage, their culture. So in many ways, the language is very important, but then also the appearance, to feel that there is this connection. So when you see even this way of dressing of older women, it's a way to connect the whole community to show that, we are together.
Right.
It's not only to show that, it's really like, I don't know, in England where I live, most of the women, hoyoinka, jilbab, they wear jilbab. It's become a kind of uniform, but it is a protection. It's a way to protect, the identity.
So, okay, so it's symbolic, right?
It's very symbolic. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand that, and I have seen that. I do feel that it is kind of as a protective measure of like conserving one's culture and identity. But myself, and I don't know about other younger people maybe, but when we were younger, when we were growing up here, that sense of wanting to preserve your culture isn't very strong in young people. Usually young people are just trying to go with just kind of trying to fit in wherever we are. So wanting to like stand out is like every middle schooler's or high schooler's worst nightmare. We don't want to stand out. So the jilbabs that the moms wanted us to wear weren't really things that I didn't personally want to wear it because I did not want to stand out in my middle school, 7th grader, 8th grader, high school. That was not really something I was trying to do. And that kind of creates like some sort of like cultural clash between like parents and children. Our children are usually more easier to adapt to a new country anyway. Were your children, I guess, born in Italy?
Yeah, but no, one was born in Somalia. We left Somalia when she was 2 months old.
Oh.
And the other one was born in Italy, yeah. And we were the only dark family in the whole of Novara, of that small city.
Wow.
So we were, everybody was looking at us, touching my daughter. I mean, it was terrible. It was really terrible to adapt.
Horrible. I saw one passage that I read was something about home, but you said you're in a place where nobody knows your name but the color of your skin.
Yeah.
And that just really, really touched me. Where nobody knows your name but only the color of your skin, and like having to stand out like that. I can imagine, and I have experienced that, where we also lived in small cities where we were the only Black people, right?
Yeah.
It does something to you, doesn't it?
It does, especially when you come from a place where everybody knew you in the neighborhood. You are Shirin Ramzanali, you are the daughter of Habiba, you are the daughter of Ramzan. People know you. It's so normal. It's so, I mean, you feel at home. And then suddenly people just point at you just because of your color. And it's terrible, They don't know nothing about you. They don't know from where you came. And they look at you as if you are a rare, something so exotic in a way. But at the same time, with racism, because let me tell you, at those times, people didn't know much about Africa. They didn't know much about how people were living in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I told you they were asking silly questions, really.
Very offensive questions, huh?
Yeah, and now, it's the same thing is happening, but in a different way, because we have migrants who come to Italy, tahribka, people with a boat, from the Mediterranean. So it's become like, everybody's a migrant, everybody's a poor. And most of these, people who come are people who are educated, people who have studied. They are not ignorant, people who speak 2, 3 languages, but
Mm,
still, in the mind, they are just migrants. They just came, they are poor people. They are nothing. Just people dying in the sea with no name, and with no. This it hurts you really.
it does. It really does. And I read about some of the people that you wrote about who came here, who came to Italy educated, but they were not able to find jobs because their education was not recognized. And just
Yeah,
that idea that people are coming from poor places, poor, destitute places, but just a little bit before that time, Italy and other European countries went to Africa to, basically mine Africa for our natural resources, for our human, for human labor.
yeah,
Audacity, for me it's the audacity,
yeah,
to think
yeah,
that way of Africans, when not even 100 years ago, less probably from now, it's probably more than 100 years ago, but during that time that you went to
yeah,
Italy, maybe it was less than 100 years ago.
yeah,
Italy was just in Somalia, mining it for whatever it
yeah,
was,
yeah.
and there have been no reparations for that. And I
No.
think I remember talking to you about the young people who are born and bred in Italy and who are not recognized as Italian citizens.
Yes, we have this big, big issue now in Italy since 30 years. We have already second generation, third generation of children born from, parents who come from Morocco or Nigeria or Eritrea or
Hmm.
from many other countries who are still not recognized to be Italian citizens, because to be Italian, you have to have Italian blood,
Mm.
or one of the parents has to be Italian. Otherwise, you are not recognized. While in America, if you are born in America, then you are recognized as American. And so now they are trying to introduce a cultural, to show that these kids are really culturally Italian.
Hmm.
So to modify the law, but this law doesn't even reach the parliament because nobody wants to talk about it. The
Hmm.
far right is very strong
In Italy.
in Italy. It's very, very strong.
It's
So there
gaining
is always.
momentum in other parts of Europe as well, right?
Yeah, it is getting it's getting worse, really. It's really getting worse. And I think also this COVID is not bringing good news, because lately they were saying that migrants bring COVID. So they are rushed and put in ships, on the ship, so they are not in the Italian territory,
Hmm.
saying that they are bringing disease, while this is a disease that doesn't have any border really, and any nationality. It's everywhere, the pandemic.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of like xenophobia that came back. I mean, that has been there, but it's just much more overt because of
Yeah,
this pandemic. It's almost giving people reasons or some sort of justifiable reason in the name of
yeah,
health to be blatantly xenophobic.
yeah. And I think economically now, when Europe is going to lose more and more jobs, this issue is going to get worse really,
Hmm.
because if there is no jobs and people are feeling poor and they cannot afford, it becomes more difficult for people from other countries who are living in Europe. They are the ones who will be marginalized more than others.
True, true. It is always like the people who are either minorities or children,
Yeah,
women, and other people that are marginalized in the communities that suffer the most during those
yeah.
economic hardships.
Let me tell you something. When I went to Italy, like we were living in the north of Italy, who was marginalized was the southern people of
Oh,
Italian people who were living. Yes,
okay.
they were saying no jobs. We don't want to rent for Sicilians or Calabrese, because
Oh, okay.
there was a very strong. And slowly, when Italy has become a country where other people who are coming from other nationalities, it's
Uh-huh.
shifted. But this racism was always there, really.
So it's Sicilians now became Italian, and everybody
Yes,
else was not Italian.
yeah.
Right. It's the same
Really.
kind of thing here in the United States as well. When other white people came here, namely like the Irish and the Italians, they were just
Yeah, they were not
they were
considered, yeah, white.
they
Yeah,
weren't considered white, and then now slowly, because there's racism against Black people,
yeah,
because immigrants now, Italians and Irish descendants are considered white, right? And they're part of, just like the Anglo-Saxon whites, so
yeah.
it's sort of like that.
It's terrible, really. It's an issue that people have to realize that with this kind of mentality, nobody will grow, really.
Absolutely not, really. And it seems like, to be getting, I don't know if I should say worse, but I do feel like the climate now with COVID-19 has allowed it
Yes.
to like fester a little bit more. It's gotten, a little bit more visible, a little bit more brazen and emboldened.
In fact, the people who are dying from COVID is mainly people of color, isn't it?
It is in the United
Yeah.
States.
In the United States, in many other countries also,
Mhm.
it's the same thing. In Italy, we don't talk much about it. We don't say the nationality of who is dying, but for sure, it's even in Sweden. I've heard a lot of Somalis from Somali community are dying. In England, the same. They don't talk about it, but it's the same thing, really.
Right. Somebody had asked a question. Just to kind of talk. Somebody had asked a question about your work dealing with different languages such as Italian and English, and they
Yeah.
said, "How much do you engage the Somali heritage in your work?" I imagine that they're talking about the Somali language then, because what you write about is your Somali heritage, right? So I'm imagining their question maybe is in the Somali language.
I don't write in Somali, of course, because I publish in Europe, so but I speak Somali, and I always try to put some Somali words in my books because I want, in the Western people to make it as if it's so normal.
Right.
It doesn't have to become, even my first book in 1994 when I wrote Lontano da Mogadishu, I was keeping some Somali words so it doesn't become an alien word, it doesn't become an alien language. It becomes a bit familiar also to them.
True. I wrote, before I spoke with you, I wrote some things in the morning, right? And it touched a little bit on the Somali language. So I said, Shirin walks me through the vividness of all the colors as I imagine the dira'as, the shawls, how the homes were decorated. I smell the spices of all the foods, and I imagine the warmth and love flowing in homes after a meal has been cooked. I imagine the richness of the Somali language being spoken, the language I know enough of to communicate with, but not enough to prefer it over speaking and writing in English. English accompanies me in my dreams. It is in nearly everything that I do in my day-to-day existence. I am completely immersed in it, and it has become a part of me. There is no untangling us now, which makes me think, am I a traitor to my mother tongue? The first language that I ever learned, the language my ayeyo, my grandmother, raised me with love, warmth, and belonging. How could I and Somali have become strangers?
Mashallah.
Something that happens to us, right? We're speaking in English right now, and I prefer to speak in English. And then you think to yourself, am I a traitor to my language?
No, I don't think so. I speak about my generation when I was growing up and I was studying Italian in Italian schools, because the Somali language was not even written until 1973, where I already left Somalia, and then it became a written language with a codified Latin alphabet. But before that, it was not a written language. So people of my generation studied in Italian. So Italian is in a way my first language, the language where I communicate, where I can write. And for me, Somali is always an oral language, because for me, it was always, the sound of it that kept me in a way. I would like to read something about the language of, because
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, something that I felt about. Let me see. Because we are talking about language, right?
Yes. The language is just so important, It's so important. Its importance cannot be overestimated or overstated even. It's just so important.
Okay, so this is what I felt writing about Afkahoyo, mother tongue, the sound I carry in my memories. I live in this bubble of voices, the sweet warm milk suckled from Hoyo's generous breast, my falling into sleep covered in a blanket of words. My first steps, I wobble, I fall, salty tears plowing down my face. I look at the blue sky, I stutter, struggle, a funny sound. Hoyo laughs, she giggles. She makes me repeat the same word again and again. Her eyes flicker like the first stars that peep in the inky night. The sound of this language has memories, built brick by brick. It can move my deepest emotions, the hidden ones, like pearls buried at the bottom of the sea. This language is not always mellow, pure, soft, musical, kind. This same language can hurt, curse, wound my heart and leave invisible scars. This guttural, harsh sound can heal my soul. I carry these notes like a timeless instrument. I'm the howling sound of the arid desert wind. I'm the pungent scent of the bush. I carry the early raindrops of Gu and Dare, spring and autumn. I'm the music of camel bells marching toward abundance. I'm the cracking sound of charcoal burning Luban. I'm the frail sobbing of a mourning tribe, of a child crying for help. I'm the ruthless echo of uninvited bullets, of hatred and destruction. I'm the bitter soul whispering prayers. I struggle when I have to read this language I love most, written in an alphabet adopted from a foreign land, signs not strong enough to lift my heavy tongue. I feel like a ballerina dancing on a broken toe. I abandon this newspaper. I refuse to read these words. Burad Baded, Burbur Bahi, Argagihiso, Ado, pirates, destruction, poverty, terrorism, enemy, Dagal, Dimasho, Dig, war, vet, blood. I treasure the language of poets, Hoyo's lullabies, jokes and proverbs, blessings and goodness. Barako Yowanag.
Oh,
This is the language, this our language. Afka Hoyo. You know, it's the first lullaby. Huwa ya huwa.
yes.
Afka naska markii lagu geliyo. يعني معاك. That's, you know, it's we can't say that we are traitors. No, it's not possible.
Mm.
I think even if a child doesn't speak perfect Somali and he's grown up abroad, it's still his language. It's the languages of his mom, of his heritage. So, you know, let me tell you something. Because in Italy, I was not meeting a lot of Somalis. So whenever I was going to England for vacation, I used to eardrop as, you know, Somali speaking, and, you know, it was so nice. Man, Africa Somali, I just wanted to shower with it, you know. And the thing that I like in England is because you meet a lot of Somalis, and I was in the community, and you start speaking the language. We have entire really neighborhoods where you just hear of Somali. That's it. You know, it's the beauty of it. You know, and that's what we really miss, and what our kids miss. And yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's
Last year I was like in a state of shock. Like I got out of the air. I was in the plane. And I saw a little outline, right? I saw the outline and I was like, oh, is that Somalia? So I'm speaking in both English and Somali to the gentleman right next to me. And I'm asking him, is that Somali? Somalia mia, Somalia mia. Somalia. I didn't know, you know, I was just like, and then when I got off, I'm always smiling. I'm like this. Like I can't stop smiling everywhere. Somali like the person helping me with my passport and visa is speaking Somali. The person getting my bag was Somali ko hadlaya. Like the person I'm buying my telephone, I bought like a little toshla. Somali ko hadlaya.
Yeah.
Never been surrounded with so much Somali before in my life. Wow, what are it? Like I'm so dizzy. And
It's
I couldn't
fantastic.
believe it. And
Yeah.
I realized then what we lost, you know?
Yeah.
It was really tough, you know, to realize that, like, oh, this is the kind of environment my father grew up in, my mother grew up in, where you take for granted, like,
Yeah.
who you are and
Yeah.
where you're from. You know, you just know in admission and you don't have to be reminded that you don't belong. You automatically belong.
Yes, yes. While when you live abroad, even if you are born there, I see the children who are born, abroad, they never feel this sense of belonging. Even if they feel it, somebody else will tell them, "You
Oh
don't
yeah,
belong here."
you'll be reminded.
Yeah,
You'll be
constantly. Yeah, it's very sad, really, because we have to accept people who come from other countries who feel what they want to feel. This multiple identity that we have,
Mhm.
the the way that we feel at home anywhere in the world, because we have to be strong and adapt.
We really do. I was going to read something, but the way you reading is just so powerful
No,
that I can't read your words for you. You have to read it. But because the way
my
that you're reading, there's so much emotion, and I don't think I can show that emotion the way you do. It's on page 83. It's called Fantastic Destinations. And this one made me cry. I just cried with this one. How about
83 waxa waaye markii aan dhahayo ilmahan waxa gay rabaa maahino. Yeah,
ha?
this one. Yeah,
All
yeah,
the
yeah.
places you wanted to take your children.
Yes. Okay, you want me to read this one?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. Fantastic destinations. My little girl was 5 years old when, for the first time, she asked me with her bright and curious eyes, "Mom, what was your school like?" Many years have passed since that day. My hometown has been destroyed by bombs, bombs that erased the places of my childhood, places that I hoped one day to show to my two daughters. Now I can only write to them about these places, sharing with them an imaginary journey to fantastic destinations. I wanted to take you to Jazeera, where the sand is so white and the sea so green, blue, and clear that no poet can describe it. I wanted to lie down on the terrace of my house on the full moonlight night to count the stars, and during the day to play with the clouds and turn and take off to a fantasy. I wanted to show you my old school, Regina Elena, where the scent of frangipani that grows in the garden is so strong that it floats into the classroom. I wanted to go with you to Via Roma, the first road I knew and which was my whole world as a child. My tailor, my sweet shop, the mirror shop at the Bar Leon d'Oro, the fabric shop where silks from India were sold, Patria Superstore, the pharmacy of Ben Ali Quer, and the voices of all those people who greeted us warmly. I wanted to take you to the super cinema where the great emotions I saw the movie Gone with the Wind under the big starry sky. I wanted to take you to the pastry shop of my childhood where I ate the most delicious cakes ever. I wanted to enjoy the fresh shade under the big tamarind tree, to have a taste from the mountains of dates and to smell the thousand scents of exotic spices. I wanted to show you the fruit and vegetable market held under the tall trees of the piazza where goats and chickens ran freely. I want to take you to the gold district through the narrow alleys and small winding streets, to walk past the great mosque and climb the steps of the beautiful cathedral, stopping at the gardens around the triumphal arch where we used to be taken as children to play. I wanted to follow the curve that leads to the old post office building, where you can see the sea waves breaking on the rocks, or admire the lacy brickwork of the Sultan's White Castle turned into a museum. I wanted to take you to the old lighthouse and to show you the characteristic Shingani district with its houses that resemble Portuguese fortress. I wanted to take you to the road that leads to the airport and roll down the sand dunes. I wanted, but I cannot because everything has been destroyed by bombs.
I read that, and then I read it again, and I felt like I was going to all of those places. And I was so sad that I was never going to be able to go to all of those places. Because I remember I told you I read your book, and then after that I had gone to Somalia. And although obviously there's progress, but there's also a lot of damage that many years of instability does.
Yeah.
There was a lot broken than was repaired.
Yeah.
And there's so many. Somebody said, I'm very interested to request you change English language to Somali. It makes more sense to those who didn't understand this foreign language. Maybe they have watching now a lot of Somalian people, including me. Okay, maybe I've already made antayda waan sheegtay af Somaliga, aniga Somaliga saaxiib waan nahay, but we can become more friends, and English baad maxaa la yiraahdaa ku qortay the book. So the book reading, maybe you can tell us a little bit in Somali what that section is about.
Aniga waxaan rabay caruurtayda labadayda gabdhood inaan geeyo xamar aan tuso mehi aniga aan ku soo koray waxaan aniga soo arkay marka dhib waay si aan ku translation aan ku sameeyo gobolkan laakiin haddaa adiga tahay qof oo Soomaaliya ku soo koray in the 70s xarbiga intoo dhicin meehan dhan waa taqaanaa Shingani Roma meelihii ewel asaloo dhan aan sheego hayaa iskoolkii aan soo dhigan jiray xaafadyaashaas dhan aan soo maray marka waxaan jeclaa inaan caruurteyda xagga aan geeyo aan tuso aniga ma ogi qofka waxaan i weydiiyo haya hadduu qof yar yahay ama hadduu yahay qof oo da'weyn aniga kale inay tahay haddii aniga oo kale ay tahay laazim waa xasuusataa meelahan oo dhan
laga yaabaa qof yar
English language to Somali it makes more sense if you didn't understand maybe. Wow.
qofka yaa hadda soo qoray waay ma ogi I don't know qof yar inuu yahay asagaa noo sheegi karay laga yaabaa qof hadduu yahay uu ku soo koray Mogadishu adigaad ku soo korin after gadaal oona qofka ma garanaysaa markuu I guess maqlo waxyaalaha haddaad sheegaysid waxaa ku galaya some sort of like hami waa ku galaya like you wish inaad aragtay adigabo waqtiga markuu sidaas ahaa
aniga markaan arko dad oo isla soo kornay oo xamar ka soo tagay ee ku noqday xamar hadda xarbiga ka bacdi waa ooyaan waxay dhahaan meelihii aan anaka ku soo kornay meehii iskool aan ku soo dhiganay meehii aan socon jirnay meehii aan cappuccino ka soo cabbi jirnay xamar cappuccinoga ugu wanaagsan East Africa oo dhan laga cabbi jiray pizzada ugu wanaagsan laga cuni jiray music wax kasto jiray shineemooyinka ugu fiican wallahina aqligina ma galaya xamar soo ahaan jiray marka dadkaas markay xamar aadaan ay ku ooynayn soo noqdaan waxay dhan xamarkii aan ka siinay ma ahan waa isbedelay sidii awal ma ahan marka insha Allah moogtaa wax kasto waa isbedelaa normal way hatta luqadda waa isbedelaysaa marka anaka jovan aan ahayn luqadda aan ku hadlayni iyo slang way isbedelaan hatta young people slang kale wataan moogtaa si kale ku hadlaan rappers waaye anaka rappers ma kasi jirin markaas marka I hope really inay sidii ay ahayd Soomaaliya ay ku soo noqoto
insha Allah mise saka fiican right sidii si ka fiican you're right. Young people, they create their own language. luqadooda alifan oo waalidiintii dadka waaweyn ay fahmi karin bo. I love la shaqeeyaa moogta macallin baan ahay. I just love them so much, like the kind of like waxa ku jiro halabuur salaba dhaaf Soomaaliga halabuur. They're so smart, they are creators. wax kasta macallin yiraahdaa luqad cusub bay aliftaan bo. ayaga isla fahmaya kaliya. I love it so much. Wallahi, I love it so much.
From one generation to another, yeah, وإسبدلين والله.
Yes.
Like in 10 years, everything is changed. هذا الكلام واحد لا وحكلا لشيء ها.
Yes, exactly. So مركزة واحد وإسبدل لها، لكن وحياة قاركود there's negative change سمعها.
وحنا horrible change really.
Yes. وحن. And there are some of the people that you wrote about that you grew up with. Or one guy you said he's he was so heartbroken he didn't want to remember anymore. That really broke my heart. You know, he said, what did he say? Eugenio samahan.
Eugenio ha.
O sawiraha iska jajaxay.
wax ka soo jajaxay ninkaas waxa waay wuxuu ka shaqeey jiray isbitaalka. wax badan uu joogay markii oo xarbiga uu bilowday 4 sano 5 sano camal uu joogay markii dambe uu soo baxay Milano imaaday markaan ogaanay inuu imaaday waa u tagnay hay'ad tahay wax kasto markaas waa iska yaraay waxaan dhahay alla masawiryaal xamar ma wada adiga waa naxay wuxuu dhahay masawir aniga wax kasto waa soo jeexo dhahay mar rabo inaan wax aan xasuusto marka ninkaas markaas 60 sano ku jiray. Can you imagine? aniga waa yaray markaas. I was just shocked about this. mar qofka xanuunka marbiyo inuu garto oo alora masawiryaal oo jeexa wax kasto xira wuxuu dhahaa I want to close everything mar rabo inaan wax xasuusto. laakiin ma u maleynaa inay ay fiican tahay inay wanaagsan tahay saasoo kaleeto.
Me neither. Lakin waxaan dareemi karaa qofka like xanuunku dareemaya. He must have been in so much pain. And maybe wuxuu maleeyaa a good solution.
Marka aniga waxa way xasuusteyda dhan waa xasuus fiican oo positive. Marka aniga ma fahmi kari qofka oo xasuustiisa waxa ku laban iyo dadka dhintay reerka dhintay soo qax rafaad. way u badan tahay way adag tahay inaan fahmo 100%. marka ninkan and I don't think he's the only person because dad badan aan arkay oo dhahay anaga ma ku noqonayno we have suffered a lot dad ay naga dhintay dad badan aan arkay oo dhahay aniga ma ku noqonay Somalia. It doesn't mean Soomaalida dhan oo diaspora inay rabaan inay noqdaan hami waa ku jirtaa qof kasta wuxuu dhahaa beledkaygaan ku noqonaa laakiin there is always mogtahay this haye haddaan noqdo haddii beledka haddana dinyaadu wax kastaan some people they lose that hope or that trust again.
Right they do. laga yaabaa xataa beledkii haddaad ku noqotid xataa it doesn't look the same. inaad tahay because you've been gone for so long. gurigaada maba ahaba mar horaa qof kala qaatay. all types of things, right?
hadda hataa waxaa jira division diasporada oo imaanayso iyo dadka xagga joogo. mogtahay there is a kind of diasporada waxa waa cilmi wadaan shaqo lacag fiican dadkana waxa waaye dad oo marka there is a kind of they don't click really. marka starting to create layers. mogtahay wax kasta inaan ka sheekeyno waaye ma dhihi karno wax kasta way fiican tahay. problemka haddaan ka sheekeyno aan ka hadalno solution aan la helaa mogtahay waa loo fadhiisanaa.
No, arunta wallahi, and there has to be that conversation. Waa qasab aan kada hadalno because I read the Twitter ka akhrisada, Facebook dhalinyarta Soomaaliya jooga wax kusoo qorana akhrisada. There's a clear diaspora and local kind of division or maxaa la yiraahdaa where the diaspora have more benefits. You know, for lack of a better term, you know, marka imaadaan sharci kale wataan hadday hawsha halawdo way ka tagi karaan. Had they culture fiican tahana they can work there and they can make a life there. Markastaba they are in a better situation than the local people. And I believe that can create like resentment, you know?
laakiin problemka waxa waaye local people ma fahmi karaan dhibka ay soo mareen diasporada ilmahooda iyo familiyaashooda
Yeah, waxay kasoo lumay ayaga.
wax kasta waxay umalaynayaan easy in lagu soo helay.
Oh.
It was just really markii oo la yimaado gabaran kaaga sheekeyna magaceedii wax ma sheegayo cidda wax u diri jirtay until recently lacaga loo diri jiray Ethiopia joogay wax soo dira la dhahaa dadkan waxa waaye dhib iyo qaxar waa diri jireen markay America imaadeen ay arkeen dhibka ee dheen ababo saas miya ee markaan America idin dhihi jirin it's not easy dollarka ma laga soo guranayo geedaha ma laga soo guranayo markaan idin dhihi jirin ma fahmi jirin marka when you are inside Somalia ma fahmaysid dhibka dadka kale ay soo marayaan wax kasta easy ay kula tahay.
No, that's very understandable. Anagaba wax badan baa naga dhumay. There's a kind of loss maxaa la yiraahdaa u fahmi karin qofkaas
qof kasta in a war there is nobody who is succeeding. We are all losers. No winner. Marka waxaa la rabaa in la iscafiyo in la isla shaqeysto. There is a common goal.
There is absolutely. On a lighter note, somebody wuxuu ku weydiiyey, as a mom and an aspiring writer myself, what advice would you give? How can we balance our families, young children with our writing?
I think when you are passionate about something, you will always find the time to write. Maybe caruurta markay kastoo jiiftaan adigana are relaxed aad tahay, you start writing, you do your own things, you try to have your own space during the day, even if it is half an hour. I think that's the only way, really.
Even if it's a half an hour, it adds up because the little bit you write. Just getting that first piece of writing down. I have this obsession with it has to be perfect. Like in one, I've just made peace with it. It's not going to be perfect. The first draft is just getting it down on paper. And then later on you can edit and rewrite, but just get it down. Even if it doesn't make sense, I just get it down on paper. I write it down and then idea. But the first job is just get it down from your head to the paper.
But Ifrah, I believe a lot the first draft is the one that gives you that input.
Right.
Because it's really, it's raw and it comes out really naturally.
It does.
And then you have to refine it. But the first draft, it's really the core of the thing, of what you are saying.
Exactly. I'm very attached to my words. I don't like editing. I hate editing so much. Because like take this word out. I feel pain. I'm so attached to my words. So writing is tell me about writing and healing. How do you utilize writing? Writing is such a personal thing.
When first I start writing, I never thought I was going to publish. It was just like a diary. For me, it was like, to write something. It was a healing process. And then slowly, I started to read to some of my close friends, Italian, and they said, oh my God, it is so beautiful. You are writing about your country. We never had the idea that your country was so beautiful. And then I said, this maybe it can, change the mentality of the people and show them something beautiful. And then I started but at the beginning, I was really very insecure, very shy to read my own work because it's not easy to share your own emotions with other people.
Right.
But I think that's the only thing. You have to be strong and share. Some people will like your work, others will not like your work. This is normal. This is, even we as people like some poems, others we don't like them. Right. So the only thing is to share things and to say whatever, because we still have this voice and we have to use it.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. You're right. One of my friends, she's so funny. I hate it. I was talking about, we were talking about my show, right? And I was like, I want to make sure that I get, bigger audience, and I want to reach as many people, and that kind of stuff. She's like, don't worry about that. Whoever who's gonna listen is gonna listen. I think about and I was like, you're right.
Yeah. No, and then really, we are not writing for the people. We are writing for ourselves.
Right, right.
Not for the audience, or it's not because this is a bestseller or whatever. We are not competing. We want to have a voice, and even if we touch one person, alhamdulillah.
That's good.
Really, that's the.
I'm so glad that I read it, and I recommend it to everybody. It's like you can pick it up from. It has certain chronology. Chronology. However, you can still just open it and read from anywhere, and it's all there. You know what I mean? Like each section has its story and its images and its emotion. I mean, sometimes, I can't read it for more than a couple of pages because it makes me very emotional. I feel so much. I think I'm so glad that you wrote this. Ali Naji told me about your book. The first time he told me about it, he sent me on Amazon. It was like 2-3 years ago. And like a Somali author. I love Somali creatives, the Somali, literature, and I love writing, so I was very, very pleased to find your book. And I recommend it to everybody.
Ifrah, can I recommend the other book, the novel, Climbs Over the Equator?
Yes.
You know why? Because it touches something really that is a taboo in Somalia. The mixed race children that were born in those times. And it's very painful. It's a reality. And maybe in future we can have and talk about this also, because it's part of the history of Somalia.
Right.
Mixed race children. Yeah, Clouds Over the Equator. And really it's when my friends read it, they said, Shekadan run alomalena. I mean, it's a novel, but what it says, you can feel Mogadishu. You can feel how people were thinking at that time, how people were thinking and talking, and the streets of Mogadishu, the mentality, how it was changing from the 50s to the 70s. Shekadu Hawaii, about 3 women, a mother, grandmother, and this mixed race daughter.
Okay, so the mom, the grandmother, her daughter, and the daughter's daughter.
Yeah, the grandmother is like, let's say, a surrogate grandmother, because she's not the real grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there you will see, how Somalia was changing in that period. What happened to these kids? Because ilmahan walla waday college lagay, kristaan laga dhigay, magac Talyaani la siiyey, and they were cut off from all, Somali society. It was terrible. Caruurtan Somali na ma ahayn, Talyaani na ma ahayn. They were in a limbo.
True. Haye.
It's like in Australia, wixii la yeeli jiray caruurtii oo in so many countries it happened this, and it happened in Eritrea, it happened in Ethiopia, and even in Somalia we have Metichi. They are called Metichi Italo-Somali, and it's a very, very painful issue. So in future we can talk about this. Adiga con calma, iska subugan. Let me know what you think about it.
Absolutely, yes. Aniga, I love it, and I'm excited to hear that you have about the novel. I actually wrote it down because page I saw it on your page, and I had not read it yet, but I'm eager to read
it. But many families have got Metichi brother and sisters,
Oh yes.
Yeah, it's so like malaga sheke malashego, it's like, although the Somali society accepted these kids really, because they are Somali.
Right, so they're not considered Somali, right?
Yeah, and you know how it is, and they are not considered Italians also because they have Somali birth. So in a way, it was very difficult for them and to grow up in that period really.
It's horrible, wallahi. Like I can't even, I personally, I have a child. He's not half white, his father's American, African American, but I know what that is. I know that I have that experience personally. And I'm growing, my child and myself, we're both in America, right? So we're not growing up in Somalia. And I would say African Americans are probably much more accepting of having children that are half African American and something else. But there is that other side, right? Because I'm Somali, and because I'm a Somali woman, there is that question of whether my child, even though I'm Somali, whether my child is considered Somali as well, because I'm a woman. This is a very personal, story for me, So I'm eager to read it. I'm very eager to read it, and I will probably try to write a book report on it, and probably my own personal opinion.
Fantastic.
These things are personal to me. These things are very personal to me. The Somali identity, the Somali, heritage, the new issues that we deal with, right? Because we're diaspora. Obviously, we're going to meet people that are different from us. And some of us do enter into relationships, with non-Somalis. And that doesn't take away from our Somaliness, though, But it's only the women who are told that their children aren't Somali. Hatta ragga Soomaalida hadday hablo kala guursadaan, lama dhaha ilmahooda Somali ma aha.
But nowadays more and more people, girls, Somali girls, are marrying, foreign, let's say foreign, or ama Maraykan ha noqdo, ama wax ha noqdo, Tunisian ha noqdo, ama wax ha noqdo, Holland. I mean, things are changing really very, very much. For the Somali family, it's important Muslim ma yahay. Hado Muslim yahay. Okay, now, because they reached a point that, we'll accept everybody. But at least Muslim ha noqdo.
Right. And last resort, right? Last resort. End of the book, I think it's the back cover, and it says, how can she explain to her daughter that because adults make mistakes, children have to suffer? That's just so powerful. That is just, how many times, do the children have to suffer for the decisions, whether we want to call those decisions mistakes or not, but the decisions of the adults, and it's just put on the child.
Yeah, it's true. So
I'm eager to read this book. Very eager to read it. So and I will share it in the notes. One of my girlfriends in the comments said, share it in the notes. The Forgotten Italians. Wow. It's very powerful.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Ifrah, it was so nice being with you. I'm your follower now. What's going on? Really?
Right. You're my hawa now, with all of your wonderful writing. And we need to do another one of those writers retreat, even though I have written a few articles here and there. I've not written a whole book like you, a couple of books like you, inshallah, one day.
I read your article in The Guardian.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And I shared it with my daughters. It's so beautiful. Oh, it's so nice. She's so wonderful. MashaAllah. It's like...
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I try. Share my ideas. Like you said, at first it's really hard to get outside of your head. And nobody wants to hear this. Nobody's interested in this. Sometimes you just have to get over yourself and your own mind,
Yes. Yeah. And don't think what the other people are going to think, or if they are interested or not. If you want to talk about it, talk about it. That's the main thing.
Exactly.
Really.
That's true. We're going to have so much to talk about, inshallah, in the future. I'm so glad that you spent your time with us today. I really appreciate you. I know it's so late for you, Marka.
It is quite, I think 4:00 afternoon. Why?
Yes.
Somalian, I don't know if somebody was hearing us from Somalia, but you are recording it, right?
Yes, and people can just watch anytime.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
Inshallah.
So
thank you so much. Ma'asalama. Virtual hug.
To everybody, virtual hug. You are wonderful. Thank you very much.
And thank you to all your listeners.
Thank you, everybody, so much.
Thank
Who's been watching this entire time. Well, you're so wonderful. And I always say, time is the most valuable gift you can give anyone. So, Mahatsunidhi, thank you so much, people. Have a wonderful day. مع السلامة.
مع السلامة معانا. مع السلامة.